5, 4, 3, 2, bam. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the podcast YouTube show that talks about writing and the thrills and the challenges of writing and the mistakes along the way, hopefully to make your path and your journey a little smoother. And I know you're looking and you're saying, oh my God, someone let Chris in by himself. Yeah, it's really not often that happens. But Alex Simmons is off doing Alex Simmons style adventures. And he asked me if, since he got called away, if I could go solo. And I'm thrilled to do that because I'm talking to one of my favorite people here today. So let's not wait around. Let's talk. Let's introduce Damon Manx. Hello, Damon. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Chris. Hey, thank
All
you
right.
so much for that awesome introduction.
I've barely begun because Damon is a owner of Last Waltz Publications. He is an independent and traditionally published author. He is also one of the more inspiring stories of transformation that I have come across in my journey. There's a few of them. He's one of them. And I'm hoping we talk about that and talk about Damon's writing process and his productivity. And also, he's really great at finding the places to sell his books that where all year last year I spent at least one day a week going, how did I never think of, how did I not know? How does Damon know this stuff? What the hell? So hopefully we'll get a little into the magic of how local marketing and putting yourself out there, you can build almost Aerosmith style. Aerosmith built a little following in Boston and then in the state and then in a couple of states around that area. And whatever they would put out would sell like 75,000 copies and then stop because that was all their fans. And it took them a big push to hit the next thing. And Damon it seems to me that you're in one way, you're building that up, your fan base or your follower base or your reader base, almost one block at a time, because you go to a lot of local places and again, it inspires me. But we're getting way ahead. Let's go to the secret origin, Damon Manx. Damon, you have been on a journey, my brother.
I've been around the block, as the old folks say.
Yeah, and it's often been a challenging block.
It's had its ups and downs, that's for sure.
So, if I remember correctly, you started way back before writing. You were a bass player.
Yeah. And taking it from the Aerosmith playbook, I was always a big fan of the grassroots movement. And I thought, if you're going to do anything or grow anything, naturally, that's going to start in your hometown.
Right.
And then hopefully grow into your home county and maybe your home state. And then
And
go from
you've
there.
carried that with you.
I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
It's so interesting that you and I see that very differently. You're I'm trying to, and I'm seeing you as saying you're half what was it? 90% of the battle is showing up, 90% and or something like that. And that's one of the things that I really learned from you last year, and I hope to apply this year. So from bass, and I guess you in some local, was it Jersey bands? Is that?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that's like my origin story, because there was like my origin story kind of started the day I saw Jaws. And from there,
Jaws.
I came home and I said, this thing needs a part two. And I came home and I don't know how old I was, 9 or 10. I wrote a terrible screenplay where I was the star and my parents were in it and all my
Nice.
friends were in it. And
Sure.
it was terrible.
Terrible is great. That's a
Yeah.
great place to start.
And that's probably like the first thing I ever wrote. And then I was an awkward kid. Like, I'm writing Jaws at 10
Right.
years old. I was not like the cool kid. I was
Right,
not
right.
into sports. I wasn't that outgoing. I might have been a bit outgoing, but I was definitely nerdy and definitely awkward
Right,
and really insecure until like I picked up a guitar in high school. And my fingers, they're very short and thick. So it wasn't a lead that I was going to be doing.
That's right. That's right.
So I went to the bass, which was
chords.
really good. The bass was good because
Four strings, four better
nobody
than
wanted to
six.
play it,
That's right.
I'm like, I could do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I joined bands. I did the 80s, like new wave thing. And then we
Sure.
did the hair thing. And then in the grunge thing. Then like I got older and did like covers and wedding, but I never got in the band to that plateau that I really wanted to get. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never could achieve it.
I got through being very proficient at playing up to 3 or 4 note bass lines. A lot of bands that played one gig or never got out of the rehearsal space. A lot of that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you were talking about Jaws. After Rocky 3, I came home and wrote Rocky 4. I was a little older than you.
Nice.
And Sylvester Stallone was premiering Staying Alive. Remember the
A classic.
sequel,
A
right? It was the
classic
sequel to
movie
Staying
there.
Alive, right? I got it in my head, always a dangerous place, Damon, when we get these ideas, that I would hand deliver.
Mm.
I was like, you're never going to see him during the premiere. So I knew he was going to be at 4 spots. He was going to be at like a promo place or for interviews, and then he was going to be at the theater, and then he was going to be at, I think it was Studio 54 and some other place. So I wore working guy clothes, right? Like that. And it was it was most of my wardrobe. And I got a clipboard and I wrote out a sign sheet, right? And I had 4 envelopes. And I went to the guy, each one of the door, and I said, "Look, this is, hey, I just have to deliver this. I need someone to sign for this." And they were like, "I don't know if I'm going to see this, Mr. Stallone." I said, "Look, someone's got to sign for it." And they would push me through and
That's
all this sort
awesome.
of, right?
That's so
So I got them
brilliant.
all out. And then about 2 months later, I got I got a letter, a printed letter on Staying Alive stationery, and says, "Thank you for your pitch. And we just want you to know that Mr. Stallone writes all his own Rocky scripts. So we won't be able to use your fine idea."
Still got a letter back. That's amazing, though.
That's
Jeez.
ridiculous. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. But let's go from the ridiculous more to um your arc from rock and roll to writer. There's some
Yeah.
adventures in between. Tell
Yeah.
me what you want to tell me. Tell us what you want to tell us.
The biggest point of my art, which and a lot of people know, is that I was an addict for a lot of years. And because
Yeah.
heroin addicts are really known for the great decision making that they are so profound in doing, I wound up in the prison system as a result of that. And
But a lot
you
of
know,
people would go in there and it would just lead lower and lower. But this is where the inspiration that is used starts happening for me. You made other decisions.
yeah, you reach a point as an addict, and especially if your addiction spirals to the point of misery and destruction that mine did, which most addictions do if they're left to run their course,
Sure.
especially opiate addiction. And mine ended me up in facing a hefty prison sentence. I was signed a sentence to be sentenced to 12 years
Wow.
and ended up doing 8 of that.
That's still a lot of time. Oh my God.
But there was the point where, okay, this is the end of it. My life does not continue from here. More than just depression, utter despondency.
Sure.
And I tell people I lost everything, but as an addict, I gave it away. I sold
Yeah.
it for
Sure.
pennies on the dollar and isolated myself from the people I love and really screwed a lot of people over. So I was at this point where hopelessness just does not really fully encapsulate the emotion that was gripping me during
Yeah.
those first few days. And I ended up like really exacerbating my situation by my first couple weeks in the county jail. I ended up in the hole because I attempted to make hooch in the
Oh boy.
kitchen. Yeah, yeah. So I compounded my misery and just I dug that bottom so deep.
Hmm.
Uh, I was in the hole, and there was only one sheet of paper in that hole for me to read, and it was a pamphlet on recovery. And
Wow.
yeah, and epiphany,
Sure.
spiritual awakening, whatever you want
Mhm.
to call it. I wouldn't say spiritual awakening at that point, but certainly an epiphany that this is where
Um,
it has to change.
moment of clarity.
Moment of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. My rock bottom had gotten that low and so much of a desperate point. I decided to do everything about that to pursue
So
recovery.
while you were in the hole, did you request, or once you got out, you
So
requested, or how'd that happen?
from the hole, I asked for there's forms you got to fill out if you want
Yeah.
to get included in any of the programs that they were
Okay.
doing in the county jail. And I signed up for everything, whether it was a spiritual based program. I
Right.
went to 3 different kinds of religious programs that they were doing. Ever it was, went to Catholic mass. I went to the born again Christian thing they were doing. I signed up for the Jewish put on that meal thing program, but everything. And then I signed up for NAA
Sure.
and another smart recovery program.
Di-
And I latched onto it. I found guys who were coming in there who were bringing their message of how they found strength and recovery, and I really latched on to
What
what they were saying.
was there a program in particular among that menu that really clicked for you?
For me, I really latched on to the guys who were coming in from the AA program just
Hmm.
because they had so many years
Right.
clean and sober.
Right.
For me, whether it's drinking or it's drugs or you're addicted to sex or whatever it
Right.
is,
Right.
it's an addiction. And
Once you lose control of your life.
yeah,
Right.
and I reality where I was rarely in control of anything. So.
So you went through recovery inside?
Yeah, so I asked one of the guys who brought in the word of hope into
Hmm.
the county jail, and I asked him if he knew anybody who could maybe sponsor me and walk me through the steps.
Right.
A guy named Tom came in, and we did it through the glass. We talked on
Sure.
the phone like you see in the movies,
Right.
and we worked the start of the steps to the best of my ability that I could do while I was in the program, which started me on a journey because from that county jail, I was transferring into the prison system. And for me, it became a walk the walk kind of thing, do it. So I pretty much lived my entire sentence in the prison system as a man in recovery, talking the word, trying to help other people find it,
Okay.
going to every program that I could, latching on to education in the system.
Right.
Uh,
That's the I want to go a little more to the recovery, and then I want to talk about the education.
yeah,
Did Tom continue with you as your sponsor throughout, or did you have one?
yeah.
Did you
So
wind up in one prison?
I did my time in one prison. Not that there wasn't steps along the way,
Sure,
because
sure.
there is a process of going to prison. You go from
Right,
the county jail to getting sentenced to
right.
the intake facility. So I went to Northern State Prison, which is in Newark, New Jersey.
And was Tom able to continue with you, or did you have to go for another sponsor?
So Tom continued with me we wrote letters back and forth. By that point, one of the guy who actually introduced me to Tom actually went to Northern State Prison too. So I
Wow.
continued to see Carl as well.
Okay.
It was like 1 hour every month or something. But by
S-
this point, guys were actually coming to me and
Right.
asking me
To mentor.
in as much of a way as a man mentors a man in the prison system.
Right. How was that experience for you? From hopelessness to helping someone else out? What was that experience for you?
That it made it all bearable. It made it all worth it. And actually, the day that I got sentenced, I knew what I had done. I was admitting what I had done,
Right,
and
right.
the judge asked me. He says, "I you have signed for 12 years, where you'll have to do 85% of that. Do you have anything to say?" And I got up and I just spilled it. I'm like, I know what I've done. I know I've got to do the time. More than I am sorry that I have to do the time. I'm sorry for this time that it's taken away from my family because they're the ones who are going to suffer. And I'm sorry for the people that I hurt from the crime that I committed. And I robbed a store. I grabbed $500 out of the cash register and got
Heroin
a
brain.
decade, yeah, and got a decade for it.
Right.
And I said, yeah, if I could take anything back, I certainly would take it all back. And
Right.
since then, I've been working on my recovery, and hopefully my experience might help somebody. And he said, you know what, I've heard it all, because I know when somebody's full of it, and I know when they're not, because I believe every word you say. And I'm going to sentence you to 10 years, not 12. With the 5%, you'll only have to do 8.5, which was like, it was a huge blessing.
Sure.
So that was the start of it. Yeah. And right then, and I knew that, and he said, what, why, if while you are in prison, if you can help just one person, maybe this will all have been worth it. And yeah, he's absolutely right, because I think it's helped me to help
Yeah.
others. You know?
Now, while you were recovering and starting to help mentor to the degree that you could, you also encountered a educational rebirth.
Yeah.
Talk about that if you can.
Yeah. So there was a program going around being brought in by the county colleges in New Jersey, also mainly run by Rutgers University, called the NJ STEP program. And it was essentially bringing college professors into the prison system and getting you started on the college system, which I had stopped at high school, which I barely
Right.
got out of high school. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, let me do that. And I signed up and I took the placement test, and I made it through and started taking the English Comp 101,
What
English
made you,
Comp 2.
after all this, what made you go towards that?
I need it. There's three things you can do, like, to elevate in prison. You can, generally, it's really two. You can either go spiritually, or
Hmm.
you can go with education.
Okay.
Um, a lot of guys go right to the physical and just work out, which all through mind, body, and spirit are all very important. But
Sure, sure. That's an amazing way to look at that. I've never looked at that, those three choices as what you have to offer, or what the prison system has to offer you in a positive way. But you started mentioning English courses. Why English? Why not like engineering? What
well,
what drew you?
I took everything.
Oh, you
I
did take everything.
I went as far as like calculus, as far as the math goes. Really ate it up. It was not easy.
Sure.
The English, though, we were reading Orwell, and we're reading The Lottery,
Right.
and we're reading those great essays. What's the one? Oh, my mind is going to fleet. I'm forgetting. Olivia Butler,
Butler.
reading a lot of stuff from Butler, and
Mhm.
such great stuff. And then while I'm doing that, I'm trying to find every book I can to read in the interim.
Sure.
And I'm reading the old Stephen King books that I never read.
Right.
And I'm rereading Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I come
Bradbury.
across, yeah. And it's such a perfect book. And
Hmm.
I want to emulate that. I want to write a book that captures the feeling of Halloween. In the
Hmm.
first paragraph, I want to do that. And then I come across a book by Joe Hill called 20th Century Ghosts.
Sure. I have that book. Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got to be a short story writer. This is what I'm meant to do. I so I start writing short stories while I'm in the prison system.
That's great.
And this takes me on a whole new journey. Yeah.
Can you talk about that journey?
Yeah. That pretty much was spawned by the 20th Century Ghosts. And of course, by reading Bradbury. And
Yeah.
so there's one story in 20th Century Ghosts called Pop Art,
Hmm.
where the guy's talking about his friend as a child who was actually an inflatable toy. And this story is told so differently, and it's so emotional and so heartbreaking. By the time you get to the end, I'm like, this is it. This is what I have to do.
Yeah.
I put pen to paper and I started writing some pretty choppy, rough stuff. I didn't really know anything. And I'm working out a composition notebook, so it's
Right.
all handwritten.
I believe in letting it suck. You got to get it out,
Yeah.
and then you can move from there. Yeah.
And I had this group of guys who were also in my classes, who I would throw these things at them, and They're looking at me with these blank faces. And then one day I wrote this story and I just started, I'm like, profound sorrow is all encompassing. And
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, it sure is. It was called Devlin's Manx. And it was actually like the first short story that I was like, this is pretty good. And my
But you have to
buddy,
get through those that aren't to
yeah,
get to the one that moment. It's a whole different moment of clarity where you're like, wait, there's something that's alive here,
mm,
right?
yeah. And then I just wanted to chase that. I wanted to always capture
Yeah.
that feeling of creating an emotion.
So how many stories had you written by the time you got out?
It's hard to say.
You just kept going. You just
Yeah,
kept
I
going.
just kept going.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
wrote a lot of them are published now.
Can you tell us where?
Yeah, all my stuff now is published through my own company called Last Waltz Publishing.
Sure.
And you would find all of my stuff on Amazon. Some of my things you find at Barnes and Noble
Mhm.
on the website, and some on the shelf in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. If you happen to be in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, you would
Yeah, yeah,
find
yeah.
some.
God bless
Uh,
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, man.
yeah, God
Yeah.
bless them.
So I want to
I
talk about your titles and stuff like that, but we
Yeah,
do have to share, you and I share a deep love for the source of your company's name.
yes,
Yeah, so let's just indulge in a minute of loving the last waltz.
yeah. So for those who know, and for those who don't know, you're about to know.
That's
The
right.
last waltz is the final performance of the
That's right.
band. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the night they drove Old Dixie down, Take a
sure.
Load Off
Yeah,
Annie,
yeah,
The
the weight.
Weight,
Yeah.
all these great
Life
songs.
is a carnival.
Yeah.
It makes no difference. One of my all-time favorites. And
Mm.
they had so many guest stars, and it was shot by and directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
One of the all-time great rock movies.
So this past October, I was at Chiller Theater. I was a guest at Chiller
Sh-
Theater.
Sure.
And I have my sign up, Last Waltz Publishing, and this girl comes over and she looks really familiar. She's Last Waltz. Where did you get that? I go, "Well, I got it from the movie The Last Waltz." She's, yeah, I know. I'm Catherine Scorsese. I'm like, so I met Martin's daughter, Catherine.
Wow.
We got to talking. I gave her a copy of a couple of my books, and we exchanged numbers. And occasionally we text every now and then. But
That's
she's like,
very cool.
"You caught me right there with The Last Waltz." I'm like, "It's a great movie. Tell your dad I loved it." You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So did she appreciate that it was that inspired?
she did love. She loved that. Yeah,
That's cool. That's
she
very cool.
wasn't like, "Hey, we're going to sue you."
And she was in
Yeah,
Chiller Theater, so
yeah,
she definitely likes that style of movie.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, we had just got notified we have 10 minutes left.
Right on.
So I want to talk about, I want to see where you are. I lost you for a minute. Are you, buddy? That's interesting.
I see
Um,
myself.
there you go. I see you. I got you. I got you, bro. All right, so I want to talk about Manxiety and your other titles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Manxiety first.
Yes. So that was largely, anxiety comes from the catharsis, that whole period of being in the prison system. Those are the short stories that I wrote to get me through that. A lot of those stories are inspired by things that have actually happened to me throughout my life. The first story is called The Boy in the Center of the Road. When I was 10 years old, I was hit by a car and I was really badly injured. And that's how it kicks off. And people going into anxiety thinking, hey, this is just a horror collection, you'd be sadly mistaken. It's a collection of life experiences. And some of them are straight up memoirs, some are loosely interpreted from things that happened to me,
Right.
turned into nightmares to be told fictionally.
Sure.
And a lot of those stories were all written while I was in the prison system,
Yeah.
most of them.
And it was a #1 Amazon bestseller.
Yes, it was.
That's
That
very
was
cool, man.
very, very exciting to have that happen. And yeah, we'll hope to do that again.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So we have Manxiety. What other Damon
Yeah.
Manx titles do we have out there?
So my first book that came out was a book called Abigail, which seems to
Right.
be my most reviewed book on Amazon, which is
Okay.
a novelette, 50 pages long,
That's great.
straight out of something from the Twilight Zone, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a message. It really points a finger at. So Adrian Billard comes home one day to find something on his doorstep. Now, Adrian has been picked on his whole life. He's
Right.
been marginalized because he's gay, and he's pretty much certain that he'll never be happy. And he comes home to find a baby on his front steps, and that baby has a forked tongue and violet eyes and
Wow.
horns, but he doesn't see the differences. He sees the baby as the most beautiful creature
Right.
he's ever seen. So there's a focus on we're all the same on the inside and unconditional love. And it's not in your typical horror realm. And there's a twist in there that just comes out and is hit over everybody over the head.
So Abigail and Anxiety, those are two good titles to get you started with the Damon Manx of it all.
Yeah. If you're interested, there's other ones. There's one called Piece by Piece. There's one called Our Cranium. There's an anthology I put together called These Lingering Shadows. Cool. That's all Gothic horror with some great authors. There's one called Tales from the Monoverse, where every story takes place in a world without color.
Wow.
Very neat. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, where can people, if they want to follow you or if they want to find out more information, where can they do that?
You can definitely go to both of my websites. So you've got the w.damonmanx.com.
There you go.
To see it as my name is spelled, w.lastwaltz.com. Yeah. I'm also all over the socials. So Damon Manx on Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Damon Manxes. So if you get that, you'll find them.
If you spell it, you're going to find me.
That's right. And it's in the bottom corner of those of you who want to see.
Instagram, TikTok, you go to Amazon, you'll see a list of all the books that I have, all the books that I've been involved with.
Cool. Now we have about a minute left, and I'd love for you to offer some advice for those who are, some of our audience started writing a little late.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my thing. And I started writing late, and I'm coming from a guy who probably thought not only was his aspirations of following his dream over, but I was at the point where I thought my life was over. And I was in my 40s when I started writing short stories. Yeah. It was 2020 when I got my first short story published. Yeah. It's never too late. If that's your dream, you owe it to yourself to chase it with every possible ounce of energy that you've got. And you deserve it. Because giving up on your dream is probably the most of a disservice that you could do to yourself.
That's right. We're here to do what we do. So there you go. Damon, thank you for being here. Thank you for telling your damn story. Go out and check out some Damon Manx, ladies and gentlemen. You won't be sorry. It's real. It's got a soul. He's a good man, that Damon Manx. All right, sir. We will see each other further down the road.
Thank you, sir.
Peace, everybody. And we'll talk to you. And hopefully we'll see Alex next week. All right.